Well, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Hopefully, guys, you're doing well. Thank you for joining today. Today, we're going to take the Meade Mill run up to the town of Meade on the Meade branch. I said Meade a lot of times there, but let's start by chiming into the cab for the reading of the track horn. Reading back to dispatcher, track warrant number 12 to SP 5845. Box number 1, track warrant number 11 is void. Box number 2, proceed from Billery to Meade on main track. Box number 6, this authority expires at 12:01 p.m. Box number 10, clear main track at last name point. Box number 15, flag protection not required against following trains on the same track. Box 17, other specific instructions, Fargo Yard Master to direct movement into Scanlon Yard. Okay, at 10:02, initials DMH. Out. Well, with the go-ahead out of Billery here, we're going to go ahead and get ready to roll. We're going to be heading east, actually, up the Meade branch. This is about 7.5 or 8 mile long branch that leaves Billery and crosses under the main and then heads east up to the town of Meade. Meade has a very large lumber mill up there, ships in a lot of logs, and then of course ships out lumber, boxcars, flat cars, and also wood chips and gondolas. And once we get up to the town of Meade, we will cut our train actually and let the local there in town actually do all the switching. It'll break our train down for us and build up our new one, and then we'll hook up and head back down west is the direction that we'll be on our way back to Billery. There are 2 other towns on the Meade branch. We will pass both of those towns, but this train does not do any work in those towns. Those are the towns of Glenthorne and Meade. This train passes right through both of those, and we only do work in the town of Meade. So it's like a hot shot almost, but not really because it's on a branch line. This here is where the branch breaks off. You have the Meade branch to the right. There's a quarry branch on the left that heads down to a large stone quarry. That over there is worked by the Billery local. And then, of course, straight ahead, if we had taken that route, would be the main line that eventually turns around and heads south again towards Coxton. You can see the speed limit through here is 20 miles an hour, taking it nice and slow. This is where we cross under the main. The Meade branch definitely has height and width clearances and restrictions on those. We can't take any auto racks, for example. You can't take any car over 18 feet, I believe, is the limit. I'd have to double check on that. And we can't take any car that is longer than 73 feet. All right, so about the longest car we can take is a Centerine. We also cannot take any locomotives with 6 axles. Those are forbidden on this branch as well. As far as operations go on the branch, typically we have this train will head out first because it's just a straight shot up to the town of Meade. And then about 10 minutes later to 20 minutes later, depending on the yard, usually we'll have a second train run on the branch. And that is a way freight that works all the towns and industries along the branch up to the town of Meade, and including the town of Meade, because this mill train here only actually works 2 industries. And there are 3 other industries up in the town of Meade. So right here, we're looking at Meade. This is the first town we come through on the Meade branch. Once again, we're just going to run through here. This town has a mine that sources iron ore for the steel mill. It's not a large mine by any means. It's not enough to run unit trains, so it's usually switched out with local service. Since we're mostly representing Arkansas to an extent, we are going to be heading up east into the foothills of the Ozarks, so it will get a bit hilly here in a little bit. You will also notice that the trees have transitioned to more of an aspen and a pine kind of look. So here's us heading east, getting ready to start climbing. You can't really see it from here, but we've just passed through a horseshoe curve, and we're now crossing over the second bridge that crosses this river here, or I guess you can call it a creek. It's not very big. I have decided to replace this bridge. I have a video coming out in the future where I'll actually show the process of replacing this bridge. Here we are passing the Glenthorne co-op. This is just a very small facility for loading stock and different grains and food crops. And here we are approaching the town of Glenthorne. It's just right behind us across the river. This is our last little S-curve before we get in there. The only work that's ever done at Glenthorne, we have 2 local tracks. Nothing very major, just a few cars in and a few cars out. There is still quite a bit of scenery that needs to be finished up here, some polishing and things, but for the most part, the general idea is roughed in. You will notice that we are carrying some steel coils. These are going up to the furniture mill in Meade, which is also served by the switcher there in town. And we're crossing over the river one last time. This is actually another bridge that I'm set to replace. Just decided that since it's a branch line, we'll give it something a little bit lighter. I don't imagine that we'd be building majorly expensive stone bridges on a small branch line. This is one of the hardest parts to climb and has some of the steepest grades on the entire route, including the main line that runs north-south. Here we have grades that are just over 1%, which, you know, in modern times isn't actually really that bad at all. But considering, you know, your power restrictions, you can see here we're running at notch 6, and we're not even really speeding up too much. So, you know, here we back are at notch 7 now. There's one last nice big sweeping horseshoe curve, kind of give you a look of the elevation gain that we've had over the river. And one last bridge. I was incorrect earlier when I said one last time. This is actually the last time that we cross over this river. And this bridge is also getting replaced here soon in the next video. We're also crossing over the line that runs down to the log camp. That has some pretty steep grades as well, but, you know, it's only ever like 8 or 9 car trains. It's not a very big deal. Here you can see we're getting the approach restricting signal. And here we are coming into the town of Meade. Definitely came in a little fast there. Speed limit dropped at 15 until we came in at 25. Fortunately, we get some grace today, because if not, I'd be on suspension for 90 days. Here we are coming into Scanlon Yard, affectionately named after the yard that gave me the inspiration for this, which was off the Oregon Joint Line. If you've never seen the Oregon Joint Line on YouTube, it's a nice, lovely in-scale railroad that operates. Very fun videos to watch and a very nice concept in that layout. So, named this yard after one of the ones on that layout. This is where our track warrant expires. So once we cut our train here, we actually would have to call the dispatcher again to get a new track warrant to be able to move. I'm not going to show that on this portion of the video. I'm just going to go ahead and show us cutting the locomotives and then getting the train worked by the switchers there on the right. You can see. So typically the way this works, we cut the train, we pull up, clear the first switch, and then we just back up. And then back on the Y where we came in, there's actually a second track. And we usually post up there and wait until the local switcher here can clear out the train and get us a clear shot back to the station at Meade. And then of course we go park over by the station and go have some lunch while we wait. Alright, here we have the local switchers coming in to get ready for their work. More or less, when this train runs, it kind of has 3 cuts or 3 blocks in the train. So the first block is usually all the cars that are going to go to the furniture mill. So we're going to cut those first and put those on a yard track. The second cut of cars is always the cars that are going to go serve the logging mill, which you can see there in the background, or lumber mill, sorry. And then the third set of cars are some empty cars that we can store here in the yard. We have 2 tracks here in the yard that are used for empty car storage, so the dispatcher or the train master ever needs to throw some cars up there for holding, you can use this yard for that. I think altogether running this train takes probably 3.5 to 4 hours maybe. But here, of course, we cut it down to around 23 minutes. There is a part 2, though, that's going to come out, and that's going to show the part of the route where we head back to Billery, and then the train gets broken down in Monson Yard in Billery. Here we are shoving back the cut that's being delivered to the lumber mill. And now we are picking up the cut of empties that we're going to store here in the yard for a little bit. This is another area that still needs, different scenery work and stuff on the ground, but for the most part, the layout is done, the track work is done. We just need some grass and bushes and clutter and all that good stuff that you find around railroads and industries. One thing you could do if you wanted to do the switching faster, you could change it to DCC mode, and obviously that would make things run a lot faster. I do like on these bigger routes, of course, to run in realism mode just to get that feel of pulling heavy trains. Alright, here we are shoving the last cut into the yard to hold for now and get out of the way. And then next up after that, we're going to go ahead and start switching the furniture mill. This furniture mill here takes textiles from the town of Moscow. We've got a textile mill over there that ships all our textiles we need up here, plus all of our leather work. It also brings in steel, and it receives lumber from the lumber mill up there, but not by rail. It's so close, they just ship it over by truck. And they use that to make all the furniture, and then we ship all the loaded furniture either to the warehouses on the route to be shipped to towns, or we ship that furniture off-route to any of the railroads that we interchange with. Now, I did for some reason lose some of the footage of this switching operation, so unfortunately we're not going to get to see much of it, but we do have, from right to left, we've got the tracks for loading furniture on the right. The track in the middle on the left is for unloading the textiles, and then the track on the far left is for unloading the steel core. So here we are right now. We're going to pull out the empty coal cars and get those out of the way. And now we're going to grab the empty box cars off of the supply track for supplying the textiles and get those ready to go as well. Those are going to head back to Monson Yard and get shipped out for really anywhere. There's, I calculated, like 600 different places you could take a boxcar on this route. 600, that's just wild. Just for a boxcar. Nice and slow is the name of the day. All right, now we've already got that cut out of the way, and we are now going to get ready to punch this back on the Y and get it stored for now so we can get around it. This is also where we start doing the set outs at the furniture mill as well. We don't just pick up cars here, we also have something set out. are a few of our setouts. This is some of the footage I lost as well. We're not going to get to see a lot of the setouts. In fact, I don't think we can see any of them actually. Yeah, sure enough. Now we're working the cut of wood chip cars that are going to go to the lumber mill. So we're going to go pull the loads. Looks like we've already done that as well. And now we are going to go set out these empties to be loaded for next time. This is one of those nice things, if you decided to do this as multiplayer, you could have someone up here operating this industry from the start. And that would mean that by the time the mill train actually runs up here, you pretty much have a lot of the work done already. And you wouldn't have to have the downtime. But, since I'm doing it single player as I build these sessions and videotape them, obviously I got to do it one piece at a time. But things would definitely move a lot faster in a multiplayer session with many people operating the different parts. Alright, now we're pulling out the cut of cars that are going to be... actually, we're just pulling out our caboose right now, sorry. We are just pulling the caboose. We're going to get him out of the way. Get him cut on the other side of the Y so we can pick him up later. And then after this comes all the rest of the work at the lumber mill. Alright, here we are shoving our setouts for the lumber mill. We're going to just leave these off to the side for now and go work all the pickups. So the way the lumber mill works, we have two tracks. One track is for loading box cars. The other track is for loading bulkheads or flat cars. Typically, the way it works is the box cars take lumber to the towns and the warehouses for consumers, and the bulkhead flats take lumber to the industries that need the higher capacity loads and things like that. Usually I don't pick up all the cars on these spurs, but today I wanted to get things cleared out here and get some cars moving. So I went ahead and just grabbed every car on all the spurs, but that's very, very rare that I ever do that. I just did it this time. Alright, now we're going to come down here and connect with our setouts, and then we can go ahead and work the setouts. This is a pretty slow process just because our train is pretty heavy at this point, and we only have 2 RS3s, and those guys are not super powerful. So it's just going to take a bit of time to get us moving and stopped and starting again. And all the intricacies and slow movement of doing switching work on the railroad. I think that's a pretty good couple in my opinion. Definitely done worse. Pretty sure that I specifically made this thing longer just so you could hear the sounds associated with all the coupler slack and the starting and stopping of rail car movement. I am considering in the future, ripping some sounds from actual trains and changing the files here to make all the coupler slack action and start and stop sounds and everything represent, the sounds you hear in the real world. But I haven't done that yet, and since most people don't do that, I wanted to go ahead and just keep it to its standard sounds for now. Alright, after we make this move, we will have all of the empty bulkheads and the empty boxcars set out here for loading for next time. Alright, now we're shoving this heavy load in order to get clear. Now way this works, we go ahead and we grab the road power and we connect the road power to the front, and we let the road power do the shove to build the train. Mostly just because it gets really heavy at this point, and these two RS3s have a really hard time moving it, and also there's just not a lot of space in here for these kind of moves. Alright, now we're going to do something here that's not necessary within the game, but it is a smart move when you're hauling heavy trains in the real world. We have some empty coil cars here. These cars are really lightweight. And so typically what you want to do on the railroad road when you get long trains is you want to always put your empty lightweight cars at the back of the train. Especially if you're going to be doing shoving moves, or if your train's really heavy. If you have light cars either earlier in the train or in the middle part of the train, they can do what's called streamlining or buckling. If you're pulling them, they can stringline. That's where they come off the track and try to take a little shorter route than what you're taking if you're doing a big curve. Or if you're shoving the train, sometimes they can buckle just because since they don't have anywhere to take all the force that's being put on them, they go up. So we don't want this, so we're going to go ahead and shove these cars at the end of the train here. Now obviously in a simulator, you don't ever get this, but this is just one of the few things that I personally like to represent. I'm not a very picky railroader, but some things I try to get right. Teach their own, Alright, now we're going to connect the other parts of the train together. Alright, you can see we've got quite a bit of length here now. I'm going to go ahead and pull forward here, and then we'll back up one more time to grab the wood chip cars. And then pull forward, get clear, and connect to those coal cars, and then we'll be ready to call the dispatcher for our next track one. Did have a little cut there. Don't worry, I didn't stop the train that fast, but we did take a little cut out just for some camera issues I was having. All right, and our last connecting move. We are getting ready here pretty soon to go ahead and shut it down for this video. In part 2, I'm going to take the train down to the west, back to Billery, and like I said before, we'll then videotape the process of breaking that train down at Montagnard in Billery. So for now, if you've enjoyed what you've seen today and you've hung out this far, thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out. Definitely don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions or anything about this route, feel free to ask. I definitely would be happy to talk about it. I haven't released a video introducing the route or touring it yet, but I'm definitely considering that in the future. One last thing we're going to do, we're going to move our power up to the signal at the end of the yard here, and then we will call the dispatcher, and when he gives us the all good, we're going to head west. But thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more videos in the future, and we'll see you next time.